In July 2023, your bank sent you a letter. You probably tossed it aside with credit card offers and grocery store coupons. That letter announced the most dramatic change to American banking in half a century. Everything about how your money moves through our financial system shifted overnight. But they framed it like a routine service upgrade. Picture the pile of mail that arrives from your bank each week. Monthly statements, policy updates, fee notices. You skim past most without a second thought. That's because we've been trained to ignore them. They rarely impact your daily life. But this time was different. Your bank was quietly signaling a huge change. Your account was about to leave the traditional world of private banking and be routed directly onto Federal Reserve infrastructure. Let me walk you through exactly what happened. 4 days later, on July 24th, Webster Bank customers opened their mail to find a cheerful notice promising great improvements to their accounts. And this is where the trickery becomes far more elegant. The letter from Webster Bank devoted nearly every inch of the page to reassuring customers about what would stay exactly the same. Sounds like everything is fine, but it's actually the calm before the storm. Your account details? Completely unchanged. Check your statement. See if anything really stayed the same. Your paycheck deposits? Still going through without interruption. Seems normal, right? But normal is exactly what they were counting on. Your debit card works just like it always has. Plus, they reminded you of access to over 40,000 ATMs through something called the MoneyPass network. Notice that detail. It's a distraction from the bigger change. On the surface, it all sounds reassuring, right? Like everything is smooth, stable, and under control. Nothing in the fine print to raise an eyebrow. But tucked deep inside the microscopic text of the disclosure packet, attached to that friendly letter, was the truth they hoped you wouldn't notice. Your account would no longer process payments through the usual private banking rails. It looks like routine paperwork, but this tiny print hides a seismic shift in control over your money. From this point forward, every swipe, tap, withdrawal, deposit, or transfer you make gets routed directly through Federal Reserve master accounts. Open your recent statements. Notice where the transactions are actually processed now, which means the federal government now has the ability to watch every dollar you move, every purchase, every incoming payment, every transfer, as it happens, in real time. Imagine a system where no transaction is private, because now nothing really is. And if this feels familiar, it's because it mirrors a pattern that has surfaced multiple times throughout American financial history. Think back. Has history shown similar quiet shifts before? Back in August of 1971, President Nixon went on national television to announce that the United States would temporarily halt the ability to exchange dollars for gold. He assured everyday people that nothing in their day-to-day lives would feel any different. It sounded harmless, just a small change, but the consequences were anything but. Your paycheck? Still arriving. Your savings? Still safe. Your cash at the local market? Still good. Check your old savings or pay stubs. Did anything really feel different back then? But beneath those calming words, everything fundamental had shifted. Overnight, the nation moved away from currency anchored to physical gold and into a system where the value of our money was determined entirely by government policy. A quiet revolution had begun. Most people didn't even realize their money's foundation had changed. And now, half a century later, we're watching that same strategy being used again, just updated for the digital age. Look at today's banking notices. Are you noticing similar quiet shifts happening right now? A massive shift in the financial system has been rolled out under the friendly label of service upgrades. But this time, the banks didn't bother asking whether you agreed to any of it. They simply notified you after the switch was made, letting you know that your money is now routed through government-operated rails instead of private financial networks. It looked like nothing had changed, but the truth was far more unsettling. Let's do a quick check. When was the last time you actually sat down and read one of those thick banking disclosure packets? Take a moment. Look at the last notice you ignored from your bank. Did you read the fine print? Exactly. Almost no one does. And the banks are fully aware of that. They count on our inattention. It's how they quietly move millions of accounts under the radar. Which is precisely why they use those unnoticed letters as the perfect vehicle to move millions of customer accounts onto Federal Reserve systems. Quietly, with no public debate, no public explanation, and no opportunity for people to object. Check your mailbox history. How many of these letters did you toss without opening? Here's the part of the timeline that really deserves our attention. FedNow didn't appear out of nowhere as a reaction to some sudden banking emergency. The Federal Reserve publicly introduced this initiative all the way back in 2019. Over the next 4 years, they painstakingly built the system, designing the framework, running pilot programs, and slowly prepping financial institutions for the switch. Every move was planned years in advance, far from the public eye. In other words, none of this was improvised. This rollout was deliberate from the start. Pause and think. How many times have you seen major financial changes quietly prepped over years? The real puzzle wasn't whether the transition would happen. The real challenge was figuring out how to shift Americans onto Federal Reserve payment rails without sparking public concern, questions, or pushback. And they knew exactly how to do it, while most people remained completely unaware. Check your own awareness. Did you notice FedNow being tested before July 2023? The Webster Bank customers who actually took the time to read that July notice uncovered something revealing. The letter spent multiple paragraphs hyping up shiny new features, instant movement of money, around-the-clock availability, seamless transfers. All of it sounded cutting-edge at first glance. At first, it seemed like a gift, but the real change was invisible. But think about it for a second. Venmo, Cash App, Zelle. Those apps have been offering lightning-fast transfers for years, so speed wasn't the breakthrough here. Pause. Did you realize your bank wasn't really improving speed at all? The real shift was happening underneath the surface. What changed wasn't the convenience. It was the entire foundation. Your once private banking relationship quietly morphed into a direct pipeline connected to Federal Reserve systems. This silent transformation rewired the core of how your money moves. Think for a moment. Are you still in control of your account, or just following the rails? When you pay your power bill or move money into your savings account now, that transaction no longer clears between two private financial institutions. It's routed and finalized through the Federal Reserve's master account network. Every dollar you move is now visible to the government instantly. And that shift has massive implications for your personal financial privacy. Before July 2023, the government needed legal tools, subpoenas, warrants, national security requests, to dig into your banking records. Private banks acted as a buffer, sometimes pushing back or demanding justification before handing anything over. Take a moment, realize that protection is gone. But today, the Federal Reserve itself is the one handling your transfers. The middle layer, the protective barrier, has been removed. Your money now flows directly through the government system without intermediaries. Ask yourself, are you still in control of your own transactions? They no longer have to request access or justify monitoring your transactions because they're already managing your money at the foundational layer of the system. Imagine every payment you make being instantly visible to the government. But this is the part that should genuinely make Americans pause. That letter you skipped back in July 2023 didn't just shift your account onto FedNow rails. Hidden inside the fine print was something far bigger. Pause and consider. Your silence gave consent without you realizing it. The moment you accepted those updated terms, you unknowingly signed off on the next stage of this overhaul. When the Federal Reserve eventually rolls out a central bank digital currency, your current FedNow-enabled account is set to convert into a CBDC wallet automatically. No new sign-up, no opt-in, no separate approval required. Your account will transform digitally, whether you like it or not. The groundwork has already been laid. Recognize this: the transition has silently begun. By the time anyone notices what's going on, the shift has already taken place. Your agreement wasn't requested. It was simply assumed. Think about it. Your consent was taken without a single signature. The massive redesign of our financial plumbing, a redesign that gives the government unprecedented oversight of American money, was pushed through using an ordinary-looking bank update that nearly every customer tossed aside without reading. Stop for a moment and realize most people never even saw this coming. The groundwork is already in place. The direction is unmistakable. Every move you make financially is now on a path you didn't choose. And the majority of Americans have no clue that their accounts are no longer running on the traditional private banking systems they grew up trusting. Understand this: the rules have changed.